Morning and a very warm welcome to our esteemed speakers at Roundtable discussion on Navigate to Cyber Risk. This is data security and information security. Now, there remains an opportunity in every diversity. And in an all digital world or in an era where digital transformation is accelerating across practically all segments or domains of operation, owing to the COVID pandemic, there remains no doubt on the importance of cyber safety, data privacy, and information security. In fact, IT and data security and infrastructure market in riding the tide of growth, leveraging this opportunity to deliver more innovations and precisions to in product and services. In reality, the IT, data security, and infrastructure sectors are riding the growth wave, taking advantage of the chance to bring greater innovations and precision in product and service. And taking this opportunity to engage with the best technology minds of PSU domain, Governance Now, together with Palo Alto, is organizing today's roundtable on navigation of cyber safety, which is cyber risk, data privacy, and information security. So now moving forward, once again, I welcome all the distinguished panelists. Shri N. Raman, Group General Manager, CISO Oil and Natural Gas Corporation Limited. Shri Anand Shankar, Chief General Manager, Information Security, Power Grid Corporation of India Limited. Srimati Haritima Jaipuriar, General Manager, IT Project, RailTel Corporation of India Limited. Srimati Meena Agarwal, General Manager, IT and CISO, NTPC Limited. Shri Dipesh Jain, CISO, Power Finance Corporation Limited. Shri Venkateswaran, TR, Chief Information Security Officer, Punjab National Bank. Shri Muneer at KongaWani, Chief Information Security Officer, Jain Bank. Shri Huzefa Motiwala, Director, System Engineers, Palo Alto Networks. We welcome all the panelists. And now I request our moderator for the day, Jaspreet Singh, partner and national leader at Thornton, to begin this discussion. Over to you, Jaspreet.
Hello, everybody. A very warm welcome to all of you once again to this esteemed panel discussion. I really look forward to the next 90 minutes in having a very engaged discussion on what probably is my favorite topic these days. Just a few things I would like to set the context with. There's a joke going on in the WhatsApp university which says, what is the single most biggest driver of digital transformation in an organization, right? And the answer is COVID-19. COVID-19 in the last 2 years has taken digital transformation on a different domain, but with the risks that the digital transformation bring in, right from cybersecurity to privacy perspective, I think it's worthwhile that we spend the next 1.5 hours discussing, debating some of these risks that come in. There was a time, and I'm pretty sure you guys are some of the most senior guys in PSUs, right, where we used to have board meetings, and at the end of the board meeting, they would say, why don't you present on cybersecurity and privacy? This is 2016, 2018 types, right? And now the ball has turned on its head. The board meeting starts and they say, why don't you give us an update on what's happening from a cybersecurity and privacy perspective? I work a lot with government organizations, PSUs, on enhancing their cybersecurity agenda. And a lot of CISOs, CEOs tell me only one thing. Jaspreet, we don't want to get up in the morning and see our name in the newspaper because of a cyber breach. With that, let me hand it over to Huzefa for his opening comments.
Hey, thank you, Jaspreet. Pleasure to be here among this esteemed panel. I think let me start by giving my perspective of what you just said, right? I think the modern enterprise, including the PSUs here, are facing sort of three business and security drivers, and specifically in the last 2-3 years. And let me elaborate. Number one, from a business perspective, a business driver perspective, the digital transformation. It's pretty much taken place in every organization that we see, and the business application have moved beyond the confines of the traditional perimeter, right? So your typical company would have dozens of different apps spread across DC, cloud, SaaS, and so on and so forth. So that's one driver. The second one is the user mobility, right, which has been driven by a desire to make these workforces more efficient and no longer restricted to a specific geographic area. This, as you rightly said, has been accelerated by COVID as well. And the third element, or the third business driver, I would put it, is the customer experience, right? The enterprise everywhere are fundamentally reshaping the way they operate, innovate, and maintain that business continuity to connect with the people they serve through various newer and different channels, right? So these are the key fundamental, I would say, business drivers. However, what has happened from a security perspective and security driver perspective is this, right? This fundamental change, the enterprise security, which you traditionally been so used to, is not able to keep pace with this new age deployments, right? So that kind of creates that inconsistent security in gaps, especially in visibility, which is very, very fundamental. So that's number one. The number two part is, by virtue of this hybrid culture coming in and user mobility, the attack surface has grown dramatically, right? Your crown jewel, which is your data, your devices, are no longer confined to that fortified place. They are all over the place. And hence, this attack surface has grown dramatically, which is very, very interesting. The third element here is the unprecedented level or the sophistication of threat attacks, which has gone to another level. And believe it or not, even that is AI/ML driven, including as a service. You would have known that there's ransomware as a service now coming out, right? So the cyber criminals, ranging from independent hackers to nation states, are moving in to take advantage. So the rise in attack is extremely, extremely exponential. So no wonder, just with what you said, is cybersecurity is no longer relegated to a side discussion. It's been discussed at the board level. It's mainstream, and hence we as Palo Alto feel that it's more of our responsibility to kind of walk this journey with the customers, which is why our vision is very, very simple. We're in a world where each day is safer and more secure than the one before. So looking forward to hearing views from this esteemed panel. Thank you.
Thank you, Huzefa. I think wonderful words. I'll probably use it in my next moderation somewhere, saying that the next day should be more secure than the previous day. Thank you so much. And some brilliant inputs around the hybrid workplace, work from home, transforming. You're not sitting behind only an enterprise-wide network, right? And to add to that, I'll quickly, in 30 seconds, give an example. Again, I was presenting to an organization, and I said, you have 10 offices in India. He said, no, Jaspreet, now we have 15,000 offices in India. Every employee sitting at home is an office, right?
Absolutely.
So, I would start requesting my fellow panelists to, just give us 1 or 2 minutes of what do they think when they got invited to this conference. And let me start by picking the first name on my screen. Shri and Raman, please.
Good morning to all the host and the co-panelists. Very rightly, it has been told that the way the post-COVID, that the way things have transformed, that has added certain security. Attack surface has increased, and the sophistication of the attacks have increased. So this has, and anyway, but it was not that digital transformation was not taking place. It was taking place, but majorly it was the perimeter security was the main thing, which was the driving factor. And we thought that cloud will be a in thing now, except those people, those kind of organizations where the resilience of the compute power was more important. Every day this thing changes, or customer facing kind of people who didn't want everyone to enter into their organization. Except these two, the other people were not really so much this thing to cloud and taking their data out and putting somewhere else. So this is the challenge, and the main thing which we feel is the kind of the entire scenario is we have to prioritize our data. What is to go into the cloud immediately and what is should not go. There are certain, in that also there are category of this thing which are very critical. And the other thing is we as a PSU, we are governed by the government regulations and other things also. So that all the rules of the game are not same as for us, and particularly for the critical organizations like upstream oil industry. The rules are not same as that for the any other some sort of other people who deal with the customer or some other market the people who are there in the market. Those in the area of selling and buying and selling business. So things are not different, and we don't have that kind of customer perspective, that kind of an impact on the customer base and other things. Our customers are our employees. That's it. So that is the main thing. So except some high value customers like Indian Oil and who take our refinery and some gas people, our customer is very limited. That problem is not there. So mostly the upstream oil industry in general, unlike even downstream where the customer is there due to LPG and those kind of thing, that base is not there. So that kind of driving factor is not there for us to go into the cloud and go take our this thing. So we have to be very cautious on all that. So this has message has to go, and the government embargo and government regulations are also very heavy on this kind of industries, because the compromise of the data is not only that of the data. Normally what happens at industry across, the confidentiality is normally seen as the most important thing in most of the organizations. So confidentiality is the driving factor of the information. Even most of the discourse in the information security is woven around confidentiality. But here it is not that. Here it is the other way around. It is integrity which is most important. The controllers and other things, integrity is compromised, then you are gone. And availability, because those the things, the processes have to be continuously available. So availability takes availability, integrity takes the precedence over the confidentiality. So we are very cautious. Coming back to the discourse, these are the driving things which are there actually as far as this kind of industry which is there, and most of the critical industry for that matter. But as far as most of these things are around still perimeter controlled, and we are very selective in going to crowd. Having told that, perimeter security also we are facing tremendous amount of challenges from security, cyber security. The instances have become really at least twice it has increased, 2 times. So we have implemented certain security operations centers, and even we have our some tools from Palo Alto also for that matter. We have that is just getting matured because the human intelligence cannot be overnight replaced by automation. So that has to the very selective inputs have to go into that. Artificial intelligence also has to mature over a period of time. Learning period is there. So that is taken place, and we want and this kind of thing, what I say, the customer and the supplier and the software and the user, that entire thing, and the customer means our internal customers, what is important for them, we as technology implementers and security people, and the people who have supplied those technologies to us, including even Palo Alto for that matter, their collaboration is very important. And the last, which is very important, is the government. And we have to have our umbilical cord linked to the government, which we are doing, apart from having feeds from RSA and Palo Alto and Cisco and whatnot. They are global feeds, but nevertheless, we have our what is happening down at our doorstep. Those kind of systems had also been implemented, and we share those things with all kind of government, and that is what my objective has been. So we cannot be at any point of time seen as, and this is not a big secret. Certain is the global agency, Certain definitely the CERT is made for this kind of thing only, all across the world. So uska kaam hi hai. So that this thing also we have to have absolutely having a total at the same page. We should be on the same page. So these are the driving factor with which we can because they receive more of a very focused input. So this kind of thing are very will be very useful. More sophisticated and more volume and quality intelligence will be the driving factor, and constantly we are working towards that. And that is the thing. And the second factor is the internal problem which is there, that we have to create an awareness. We should not be in the total scheme of things. Normally, technology people, what happened that the perimeter and technology drives the thing. So technology and but the game and doesn't end with technology. The people factor becomes very important. The most sophisticated technologies around you, if people make some fundamental mistakes, the users, it can just drive everything out. So that this also we have to constantly create awareness. So these are the two couple of considerations I want to put across the panel. That is the thing. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. You spoke brilliantly about talking about perimeter to cloud, to going to resilience, to talking about collaboration between the CISO community, CIO community, and also the entire government and the certain piece. Thank you so much. Miss Meena, over to you, ma'am, please. I think you're on mute.
Yeah, good morning, everyone. I am from NTPC, and for us also, the customers are the NTPC employees only. And prior to COVID-19, probably the security was not of more concern because we were all in the offices. But after COVID-19, we have been working from home, so security has become, cyber security has become a very critical issue for us. And talking about the cloud, we have not yet gone to cloud as such, but then of course, yes, the going to cloud, there's so many issues like what type of services that you would like to have on cloud, like IaaS, then PaaS, or SaaS. There are too many modes of services that are available. Then whether you're the production app servers you want to take to cloud, or the development servers you want to take to cloud. I think my take is that depending on the life of the on-premise equipment that you have, the remaining life whatever you have, depending on the basis of that, you should think of going to cloud. And it should be a staggered approach, like low impact services can be moved on to cloud. The services, the hardware of the services, of which the life is not remaining life is not too much, that should be shift, that can be shifted to cloud. Then of course, yes, going to the cloud, the security of course is an issue. On premise, it is with us, we know what is happening, we can take care of it. Like NTPC, we also have created a SOC, so we know what is happening on our equipment. But yes, cloud, we are dependent on the CSPs, and then the server owners who own the servers, probably they are not very much aware of the security issues. The configurations can go wrong or something like that. Security is an issue while going to the cloud. But anyway, we are planning and we are moving towards cloud. That's from my side.
Thank you. I think some great inputs on cloud and again, speaking about perimeter security. If I come to you, Mr. Dipesh Jain, for your initial inputs.
Thank you, Jaspreet. So in the last 17 years of my IT industry experience in PSUs, when I started my career with NTPC in 2004, I believe I started my career with the start of IT industry in India, because that was a time when actually the IT was becoming the mainstream in the enterprises, with the coming of a lot of ERPs called PeopleSoft, SAP, and all those things. So from the year 2005 to 2010, the main focus of IT was on infrastructure, applications, ERP, and security was on a last stage, limited to antiviruses and maybe firewalls. And then from 2010, 2015, 16, there was a time when we were talking about, intrusion detection systems, IPS, SSLs, and more maturely into UEBAs, the behavior analytical systems, and NGIPS and all those things. But from 2017, in last 3-4 years, security has actually taken the about turn. And now when we actually plan to take any IT setup in forthcoming rolling plans, then we first talk about its security things. So security has actually the first thing before planning about infrastructure and the applications. So that is how I have seen the entire industry taking a turn in last 17-18 years. And now talking about AI, ML, which is, the future thing which can actually help in security domain. So that is where the cybersecurity technology is going forward, and the entire security operations are actually required to be more strengthened, need a deep diving, so that the entire traffic in the enterprise, be from office, be from remote, is actually analyzed, and then timely action can be taken on those events, on those logs. And that is why I believe that RBI and other statutory bodies are also actually taking a due steps in enhancing the cybersecurity in all the organizations and creating documentations, frameworks, standardizations. So to ensure that no organization is left behind in cybersecurity era. With that, I set this stage open. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I think, very interesting thoughts on collaboration, on frameworks, and statutory bodies doing their pieces. Thank you so much. Srimati Haritima, sorry if I've got your name incorrectly. Your opening comments, please.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Jaspreet. You are right. I'm Haritima only.
Perfect.
Some people find my name difficult, but yeah. I'm GM IT and CISO in RailTel. My background is I'm basically a signal and telecom engineer from Railways, presently working on deputation in RailTel. And I joined as GM IT here and looking after the security portfolio from the last 1 year. So as Mr. Josefa was pointing out that, mentioning that, yes, during the pandemic, the attack surface has increased very much, and because of work from home thing, and we are taking lots of steps to make our people aware of the security. We are also a cloud security service provider. RailTel has 2 data centers, and I'm also looking after the operations of data center. So it is a learning journey for me, and I'm happy to join the CISO community. It is true that we can't achieve 100% security, but that doesn't mean we should sit just like that. And so prioritization is the key. We need to prioritize and identify what are the critical data, and be ready if any breach happens, how to react and how to mitigate as swiftly as possible. And as Mr. Jain was mentioning that CERT in is educating PSUs and all ministries about how to be ready in case breach happens. And for that, we are also making a plan of cyber crisis management plan as per guidance of CERT. And I still find hesitation in PSUs about adopting cloud, as Ms. Meena Agarwal was mentioning in her opening this thing, that but we as CSPs and with the support of OEMs, lots of security measures are taken, and we are trying to build a trusted relationship with our customers and motivating them to put their data in cloud. So that's
sure. Ma'am, some excellent points around 100% security. And I attended one conference in which I was part of the audience, and somebody asked on the stage saying, "What is the safest computer in this world?" And people gave all kind of answers saying, human mind is the safest computer. Somebody which is shut down is the safest computer. And then the person on the stage said the safest computer is the one which is shut down, which is put in a box, chained, and thrown into the ocean. So, ma'am, thank you so much for bringing that out. Shri Anand, if I were to now go to you for your opening comments.
Thank you. I think the stage is set by you and the speakers. Much of the threat factors which are affecting us and how they are impacting our business and kind of preparations we need to do. I think that's very well articulated by the previous speakers. I just want to take a different dimension now. Having realized that threat has become a real everyday life, we are struggling. I think the narrative needs to now move on. We can't be stuck with the threats alone. But I think what we need to also focus really is what is the risk management doing about all this. How do we articulate and rate the risks which we are facing? How do we do the risk management part of it? We don't say that. You see the slightly change in the mass behavior. You go to a restaurant and you want to have a coffee, or you go to a place and somebody is offering a coffee, sir, with sugar or without sugar. India is already a diabetes capital. You don't ask the other person. You already say that you want with sugar or without sugar. So the risk is already there. The threat is already there. So how do you live with it and how do you cope with it? That is the thing where we need to change the narrative. So what's happening is, the threat factor being talked so much, the decision makers who are not probably so much trained in the subject, as you were saying, just basically the board has now moved on from once in a while cybersecurity assurance to routine things. It has come a routine agenda for the board. So therefore, we need to change the narrative in our discussions now with how do we manage the risk. Given that the risk is there and there's no choice, cloud, something like 2 years or 3 years back, we could set, we'll go in-house only, and on-premise solutions are better for these things. But cloud also is a reality. Now, particularly, we need to segment our discussions on 2 different fronts. Like our friend Mr. Raman said, from upstream business perspectives, for example, the upstream oil industry is talking about. Similarly, Power Grid is talking, I can say that's the upstream for the power supply industry. So we don't have a retail interface in that sense. It is the discoms who face it. So when it comes to issues like IoT, those kind of things are more commonly faced in the discom business. But IoT is also coming in, and probably at some sense, we need to develop the risk management methodology. How do you evaluate the risk? How do you rate the risk, prioritize the risks, and what kind of investments you do? So those kind of things we need to probably articulate in a better manner. And the Security Operations Center definitely is a strict requirement, going by the kind of advanced threats nation state people are throwing in, and the kind of guidance we get from various security agencies. And when you have to trace back these kind of things, so obviously you need a setup like a Security Operations Center to evaluate the whole setup. Inputs. So it's a quantum change in terms of how do you handle the threat. So I think we all have to focus primarily on the critical infrastructure, where the business continuity is there, because these are the things which are most important for the national economy and national security perspective. And the organizations like CERTIN and NCIPC are already active in this area. And the prominent call, at least some of the PSU segments which we represent here, being from the critical sector, I think operational risk in operational critical infrastructure is the foremost in my mind. When, as you said, from what bothers me when I join this forum, this is what bothers me.
Wow.
Thank you.
Sir, excellent points. Nobody spoke about risk management. Thanks for bringing in the entire piece of risk management and the entire piece around mass behavior. I think we have a lot to learn as a society from a mass behavior perspective. Believe me, we were hosting 200 CISOs for a conference in Mumbai, 2019, physical event, last physical event we did. And when the CISOs were entering into the hotel, the first thing they asked for was Wi-Fi password. And then God only knows what they did with that. So if these are the CISOs we are talking about, I God only forbid what the masses would be up to. Thank you so much for bringing this up, sir. Shri Venkateswaran, sir, over to you for your initial comments.
Good afternoon to everybody. I've been listening to everybody speaking about various perspectives. And I would like to give my perspective during the past 2 years. Okay. Yes, work from home, we have enabled to people, we have brought in various security towards that. But what I have seen is, most of the security solutions were put to test during the last 2 years, whether they are working, whether they are meeting the requirements for which they have been put in place. My understanding is much more needs to be done. So instead of focusing on the security threats or fearing about the threats, we should move from that perspective of finding security to, yes, we should find security, but we should also put in place the incident response. And if there is a breach, after that, what? So the requirement of SOC, the requirement of SOAR, the requirement of log analysis, the requirement of cyber insurance, forensics, all these become important. So when and the persons to understand the logs and deduce what has happened or what needs to be done. The root cause analysis, the focus on root cause analysis, all these things have emerged and has become very, very important. See, for this, there has been reference of the risk, operation risk, the loss data, the operation risk models to be put in place, and the various policies to be drafted. One is as regards the information security or cyber security, cloud security, and we should also focus about the endpoint security, and we should also focus towards the cyber crisis management plan and the incident response. These have become very, very important, and though I think much work and the skill sets ought to be evolved in these emerging areas. Thank you.
Sir, excellent points around the operational risk management piece. I think with every new every panelist speaking, my diary is becoming quite full. I think I could probably write a white paper on PSU security after this roundtable conference. Mr. Muneer, last but not the least, I would like to bring you in to give your opening comments, sir.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everybody. I'm grateful to you for inviting me to this event, and I'm pleasantly surprised with the kind of knowledge we have across multiple domains, and everybody has been talking about cybersecurity or information security per se. So I would say I would start with where Josefa started it, mass digitization. Yes, Josefa, means you started it well when you spoke about digitization and you spoke about increase in attack surface. So we in banking and finance has always been on the forefront of adoption of technology from day one. We have seen multiple, I would say, milestones of digitization, to start with in early 90s when we started adopting the technology, and then moving from partial branch automation to full automation to centralization of our data centers and DRs. And then we as well went public. We went public in terms of providing the services when we were talking about internet banking services, mobile banking services, UPI, NEFT, RTGS, SWIFT, so on and so forth. So it has been done by almost all the banks over the last 1 decade. And then digitization, which was accelerated by certain initiatives of Government of India in terms of Jan Dhan, followed up by demonetization. We could see huge surge of customers being moved from the conventional channels to the digital channels. And then I would say an unfortunate incident in terms of COVID-19. Yes, it has been unfortunate for us as a whole humanity, but it definitely accelerated the year-on-year growth on digitization. So I would say 2020, 2021, 2022, there has been a rapid growth. I would say the digital transactions have increased 76 to 77% year on year in banking. And when we are talking about, for example, the customer base, or if we see the population across India, we are talking about somewhere around 850 million active internet users per day. So those are the statistics which are available with us. So yes, once we digitize, once we open up our services to the larger audience, we increase our attack surface. And I'm extremely happy with what Shri, Anand, Shankar Saab said. He said, let us not talk about products and technologies for some time. Let's talk about what everybody is doing. Dipesh, Jain, Mr. Raman, Shri Anand Shankar, Mrs. Meena Agarwal, Miss Srimati Haritima Jaipuriar. So everybody is assuming a role in the organization as a top risk manager. So what we all do, we do the risk management. Currently, we are trying to manage the cyber risk or information security risk. And when we are talking about information security, these risks have been there for long. These risks have been there from when the technology was adopted. We have seen what were the kind of attacks which were happening in the early 90s, followed up by early 2000s. We saw major stealth attacks which happened in late 2000 in 2000 between 2016 to 2020, and they are still going on across all the verticals. We have seen what happened with oil and gas in US, the gas pipeline which was actually attacked by ransomware. We have seen what happened with the Central Bank of Bangladesh, wherein $80 million were siphoned off. The target was $1 billion. But the hackers were successfully able to siphon off $80 million within a span of one and a half hour, though the activity was carried out over a period of 3 months, which went unnoticed over a period of that time. And we have seen it not only in Bank of Bangladesh, Moscow Bank, Korean Bank, followed up by many banks, and we have an example of many Indian banks. Of late, I'm sure there has been a news that one of the Indian banks, it was an urban cooperative bank, it has just I would say 10 days back, there was one small stealth cyber attack on a bank, and an amount of 12 crores was fended off within a period of, I would say, not more than 25 to 30 minutes. So these are the kind of attacks which we are seeing, and we are all privy to this. So my perspective, being in the industry for last 26 years and being a thorough information and cybersecurity professional, a certified information security professional, I would say there are 3 major pillars which we have to focus on. One is very important is information security governance. When we are talking about information security governance, we are talking about the roles and responsibilities in terms of what is the role and responsibility of the board of directors, what is the role of and responsibilities of the steering committees, what is the role of and responsibilities of the management, what is the role and responsibility of CISO function, and what is the role and responsibility of every individual in the organization. Because I would say I would say with full conviction that any of the asset custodians, we are the asset custodians, so are our employees, our supply chain partners, everybody is an asset custodian. So every custodian has to be a risk owner as well in today's environment. We cannot say that information security is the responsibility of CISO and his department only.
Sure.
It has to be inculcated well within the operating levels, that everybody who is holding some portfolio, who is the custodian of customer trust, or who is the custodian of enterprise trust, he has to be the risk owner as well. He has to actually analyze the risks and do whatever to mitigate those risks. That's very important. So first part is the governance, which has to be in place. The second important pillar is risk management, as Shri Anand Shankar said. What we all do, we do the risk management. We do cyber risk management or information security risk management. So there has to be a continuous process of analyzing the risks, identifying the risks, do a risk control assessment, mitigating those risks, see what is the residual risk, and treat that residual risk based on the risk appetite of the bank. If I want to transfer that risk, I can have a cyber insurance as on today. If I want to absorb that risk, I should have the policy which says that this risk can be absorbed. If I do not have that appetite to take that risk, then I probably may take a decision to avoid the risk by avoiding that entire business function. Let me not do this and let me not venture in this business. So those are the options. And third is very important from banking and I would say finance perspective, and for all the industries which I'm seeing, I'm talking, we have esteemed panel from NTPC, we have people from all the major industries over here, major PSUs over here. I would say the third important factor is the compliance. Today's compliances are not very simple. We have laws and statutes which are binding us. We have directions from regulators which are binding us. So what is the compliance risk as well? We need to evaluate that and we need to mitigate that. And once we talk about these 3 main factors, then comes a broad scope in terms of what organizations should do. I would say for effective risk management, cyber risk management, we do not have to reinvent the tool, to be very honest. We do not have to do a reinvention of things. There are frameworks and guidelines which are already available, established frameworks. For example, when we are talking about frameworks, we are talking about, we have ISO 27001 2013, which is now being ratified into ISO 27001 2021, probably being launched in the month of March 2022, which as well covers the privacy component of it. That cybersecurity framework from ISO, or we have the cybersecurity framework from Center for Internet Security. We have the NIST cybersecurity framework,
yes.
which talks about deployment of multiple controls. When we are talking about security, we are not talking about one domain of security in terms of whether my perimeter security is okay or not. Today, we are in the world wherein we have to ensure we have defense in depth approach, or we have secure by design approach, wherein if I have an asset, that asset should not rely on my perimeter to be secure or not. I am totally vulnerable to everything. So I would say when we are talking about the architectures being followed in today's industry in terms of zero trust or trust but verify kind of environment, that is to be adopted. Very important thing from my perspective is that security should not be taken in as a box or as a cube which is to be deployed somewhere to take care of it. Security has to be designed as part of your strategy, as part of your strategy, which has to be aligned with your business objectives. Today, I would say yes, there is a definite need to ensure that once you do your security part, once you plan for any deployment of security, you should have a security strategy in line with your business objectives in front of you, and you adopt that strategy. That's very important. Second very important thing is, despite doing everything, when we are talking about putting this cybersecurity framework, it more or less talks about basic cyber hygiene. And basic cyber hygiene, we all know, to be very honest. As Jaspreet ji said, he said CISOs are asking us to please give us the passwords of the Wi-Fi, and everybody has the common password, and then they are on the shared, we usually called it same shared domain, and you don't know what pre-shared key they are carrying and what temporal integrity of those keys is. They absolutely are vulnerable. So we need to maintain that basic hygiene, and basic hygiene says deployment of those controls in terms of endpoint security, controls for data exfiltration, controls for host intrusion prevention, controls for perimeter, controls for cloud, and effective CAS-B strategy in place. So those all controls are defined in the cybersecurity framework, which I start explaining probably will take long time. So I would say we focus on that cybersecurity framework. Third important thing is, everything said and done, are we secure thereafter? No, nobody can guarantee us we are secure. So we need to have effective cyber resilience framework or effective cyber crisis management plan in place. To be very honest, these cyber crisis management plans are the directives. It forms a part of any organization's cyber security policy. But then the problem is, do we really have effective cyber crisis management plan in place? We get it approved from the boards and then keep it on the shelf, and nobody knows who is the owner of this and who has to participate on. And when we ask the concerned teams, guys, come on, you are a part of cyber crisis management team, and if the incident happens or if we have to do any tabletop exercise, they are not aware of what their roles and responsibilities are. So very important thing is, we inculcate this culture of teaching people about what their roles and responsibilities are. And last important thing before closing it, I would say Mr. Raman said that people factor. So I would say three important core components again. From day one, when we were studying cybersecurity, or those days the word of cybersecurity was not there. I'm talking about late 90s or mid 90s. We used to talk about three essential parameters of security: confidentiality, integrity, and availability, CIA. I'm sure everybody has been following that. Today, the scenario has changed. Now, when the digitization has adopted, now when we are talking about the agile workforce, when we are talking about agile organization, when the time to market has shrunk, We do not know, means today morning, I get a call that we need to launch a product by tomorrow morning. You do all the testings and prototypings together and give us a go ahead by tomorrow morning, which usually was taking 6 months for us to do the prototyping or testing. So today, when we are talking about these things, we are talking about 5 parameters: confidentiality, integrity, availability, functionality, performance, and security. So these 2 components, please add it to the fray. Functionality and performance forms a part of every CISO's job nowadays. Nowadays, CISO cannot say, I will test within 3 months and then I will give my report. So the beyond confidentiality, integrity, and availability, we are talking about functionality, performance, and security. Last thing is about a culture which has been there. Probably we have been very weak on that, which needs to be enforced upon the means as a culture within an organization. The success of information and cybersecurity relies on 3 important things. I would say I have always been drawing it on the boards for management and board, that cybersecurity and or information security is directly proportional to people, process, and technology.
Sure.
You have absolute wonderful technologies which are being produced by the OEMs like Palo Alto and all. We have beautiful technologies and beautiful processes laid. If the people are not aware or people are not trained, it's going to fail. If we have excellent people and excellent technologies, but there are no processes laid, it's going to fail. And if we have excellent people and excellent processes, but no technology to support it, it's going to fail. So this is what I would draw my conclusion on. Thank you.
Some very excellent points, sir. In fact, one of my friends always says that, like you said, the roles and responsibilities of cyber is from the topmost person in the organization, which is either the CEO or the board of directors, to the last, including a security guard, right? Because he eventually maintains the physical security. You brought in some beautiful things around the ISO 27000 frameworks, etc. And then obviously the last piece around CIA plus functionality, performance, and security. And how do you build trust by environment? Again, very, very important. And the people, process, technology matrix, which keeps on moving. If 2 are right, the 3rd is wrong, you are gone for a toss, and vice versa. Shri Venkateswaran, sir, I know that you have to leave. I'll probably quickly ask you a few questions, right? So, these days we are talking about zero trust to authenticate, authorize, audit, cybersecurity architecture. What's your take there, sir, from a technology perspective? Sir, I think you're speaking on mute.
Zero trust, it has been there earlier also. It is now the way we look at zero trust is what has changed. Okay. See, when we started the core banking implementations, we have been looking at the user management, and when we implemented the human resource management systems, there we were looking at the policies when the person goes on leave. Okay. Then we combined these 2, and we brought in a system that when a person goes on leave, his user ID will be disabled, and we brought in a process for it. Okay. And this has been being followed across the industry. Okay. So now the zero trust, because the various interfaces have come up. There are APIs, there are the remote procedure calls, there are various things which are, there are bots which are working, then there are people, there are technologies, there are various interfaces, and there are interconnections among various things, and there are also, there are certain cloud the applications which are working, and there has been interaction between the applications. So this zero trust has become more important. Okay. So, but there is a need to relook at the existing processes and how the data transformation is happening, how the interactions are happening, and then we have to bring in, earlier we were using some ISO standards like that for the data transfers. There is also a need for relook of this so that the security is built into this at the time of implementation itself. Okay. For that, Yes, of course, it is very challenging because banks or organizations will be having legacy applications, and there will be a need for revisiting the architecture of those applications. One example I can quote, see, we are speaking about microservices or the virtual LAN segmentations. When we started the implementation of the core banking, these concepts were not there. Okay. So all the layers, the web layer, the application layer, the database layer would have been generally in the same segment. And there are also internal communications which are happening between the servers, which will also be in a different segment. So we were looking at only few VLAN segmentations at that point of time. But when we speak about the PCI DSS standards and this thing, they speak about the micro segmentation or the VLAN segmentation among these components. Yes, when the organizations are migrating to the new setup, yes, of course, these implementations are feasible. But when we look at the organizations which are already having these setups and functioning, it is very challenging to move towards, because there are changes which are required in the architecture itself, the application architecture and the network architecture, for which the application service providers also have to look at those securities. Somehow, the guidelines, compliance requirements, they have setting the tone, but I feel the application service providers are still not aligning with the requirements. That is what I have. I have. So we should be able to have some workaround which will bring in additional security, so that without changing the applications, we are able to implement. Thank you.
Jaspreet, you are on mute.
I think some excellent points, Shri Venkateswaran. Muneer, since you were the last one, I would probably now start with you. We all talk about enemy state-sponsored attacks coming, especially to the PSUs, to banks, right? And you guys are custodian of critical infrastructure, right? Even as NTPC defines you, right? How do you look to contain such attacks, right? And what do you do with your how do you secure your public-facing infrastructure or public-facing assets?
I will tell you. So again, thank you for this question. Very interesting one and very intrinsic one. We all know banks have been the custodian of customer trust. So let's I base my opinion on being the custodian of customer trust. That's very important. And if this trust is eroded, there are implications. If this if there is a risk which manifests into something negative, it will have ramifications not only on the public trust, it will have ramifications on the stability of the organization, and then that ramification leads to the instability within the nation as well. So we know the economic stability of every individual in the country contributes to the overall economic stability of the country. That is why these organizations like NCIIPC, organizations like Certain, organizations like Ministry of Information Technology have been more concerned about these things. So when you are talking about how do we do it, I would tell you, when you spoke about the concept of zero trust, as Mr. Venkat told, he was explaining his take on zero trust. He said it's an old concept. Yes, I agree with Mr. Venkat to the extent that the concept has been old, and the concept has already been there in our defense forces, because I have very closely worked for some of the organizations like Air Force and Army and many other projects before I took this stunt as the head of cybersecurity in banks. So I will tell you from that experience, we used to use a word which was known as, am I audible first? Am I audible? So we used to use a word, and the concept was defense in depth. When we are talking about defense in depth, it invariably means that if something has been compromised, what do we do that this does not spill over to the next thing? And the concept in defense, we used a second word was being tossed, which I have been using for last 20 plus years, 25 years, has been onion peel approach. Onion peel approach itself is a concept wherein we say if one of the tier of the onion is peeled off, you need to go get to the crown jewel, you need to peel off the second one, third one, fourth one, till the time you reach the core of it. So those are the two concepts which are being taken over by zero trust. In technology terms, we used to use a word and we used to talk about role-based access control and rule-based access control. Who is permitted to go to HR should go to HR. Who is not permitted to go to HR should not go to HR. And we have seen multiple theories in our practical day-to-day work, wherein if we go to any star property across India or across anywhere in the country, if somebody is given a guest card, if somebody has a room booked in the third story of the hotel, he can punch the card and go to the third story. He doesn't have the way to go to the second story. The circumvention happens when we do not adhere to the policies, and he uses a fire exit to go down the stairs and reach the second floor. So those are the lacunas in physical security, logical security, or the administrative controls. So defense of depth is very important. We cannot say it is not important. It has been important 20 years before. It is as important today as 20 years before. And when we are talking about defense in depth, now it has taken a different shape. Today, earlier the concept was that the users are hitting the services, so we need to protect the servers against the users. Today, we are talking about servers talking to servers, servers talking to services. We are talking about artificial intelligence and machine learning. We are talking about, for example, a lot of bots being used for productivity as well, rather than for attacks and all. So we are seeing a lot of things changing dramatically. We are seeing IoT devices placed all across the geographies for production activities, and our servers talk to those IoT devices. And then we are talking about this entire thing being topped up by artificial intelligence and machine learning, wherein the velocity of productivity or the time to the market has decreased. And this time to market has not decreased for us as the suppliers or the service providers. It has as well decreased for the hackers. It used to take 10 days or 12 days for a hacker to build a script and then to attack, or to find a vulnerability and then to attack. Today, it is taking him 3 minutes on his mobile device, wherein he checks the vulnerabilities and then he attacks. So it has drastically decreased. So very important thing is that we need to adhere to zero trust architecture. That's very important. Zero trust, again, we are talking about micro segmentation. Ensure that we do the as Shri Anand Shankar earlier said, we do the comprehensive risk analysis of our infrastructure. We identify our core crown jewels. We give the risk rating to those crown jewels and do the segmentation based on the risk appetite. And then one important concept in this is about identity and access management. To be very honest, there's a white paper which has come from, it's very beautiful white paper from NIST special publication 864 A, B, and C. They talk about auth A and auth Z. How do you authorize? How do you identify, authorize, and authenticate the user? Means there is how do you identify the user, his username? How do you authorize him? His authorization password and all, and how do you give him the accesses to the privilege? So those all things have to be in place. That forms the core of our security. And now what we have done as an organization, to be very honest, for our all internet enabled services, those are all micro segmented as on date. I would say we were fortunate to have it well before even 2010. So the time we architected our entire structure, we have micro-segmented our architecture using defense in depth, wherein we have multiple service providers employed for different layers to deploy security, because we were of the opinion that if we take one vendor solution, and if there's a vulnerability in one vendor and I have multiple segments, one vendor vulnerability would mean I will be then looking on to the vendor risk part of it. So that has been taken care of. We have an effective security incident and event management solution, a full-blown SOC, which covers the SIEM solution besides other technologies which are together. We have the intelligence feeds which are coming in from OEMs like Cisco, Microsoft. We have Fortinet. We have certain things coming in from IBM, and then on top of it, we have an external intelligence as well coming in from the external bodies like RSA. We have a arrangement with NCIIPC. We are currently working with I'm sure many of the organization must be working with NTPC, that is a National Cyber Coordination Center. So we are already working with NCCC, Project 2, we call it, NCCC Project 2, wherein NCCEC is as well taking in certain external feeds from us in terms of monitoring the metadata which is coming to us from external agencies or external threat vectors. So those all things are in place, and that is how we are managing the security as on date.
Yes, Josepa, can you just take for a while? I think Jaspreet got disconnected. He's joining shortly.
Sure. Yeah, let me take over. And I think thanks, Mr. Muneer, I think, for that elaborate answer. I think let me go to Mr. Raman Shankar. I think one very clear thing which is coming out is organization have to build a three-pronged strategy, right? To prevent, detect, and response strategy, right? And robust detection strategy requires a soft capability which is automated, orchestrated. Where do you see the organizations like yours and PSUs adopting that? Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, actually, it's a huge chapter in itself, detection, response, and coming out so many verticals within the organization, each having its own infrastructure, and coordinating those teams, definitely is a big challenge. What we have done as per the guidance from Certain, also we have participated in many mock drills, where each of the infrastructure team is trained on various aspects of threat hunting, and where is the studying the logs, and how do you correlate those things, and those things are very, very important from people who are actually manning these installations. So that is one thing which we have taken up in right earnest, and we have participated in many mock drills which are being conducted by these organizations. And we also are working out the cyber crisis management plans, where each team has to really analyze. This is something which was unprecedented in that sense in brick and mortar industry, for example, which is they had a very last imagination of cyber threat in these things, particularly banking and finance, for example. They have these measures which are built in as part of their business process, even when the banks may not have been computerized, but so that those kind of authorizations and those things were already there. Conflict of interest, those things were already part of the business process. But to inculcate the same thing in the cyber plane, and when the cyber physical planes are merging, there are many new challenges which are emerging in terms of manpower norms, the outsourcing strategy, and how do you judge whether the product which you are using is having those kind of features which we now want to articulate, particularly from the OT segment. Because in the OT segment, the devices are very, very focused in their application. And the cybersecurity stack, as we can say, is still dependent and on the standards which are in the works. From a power sector perspective, for example, many of the products you might have don't have any encryption. So how do you build encryption in a time-sensitive control systems? That is something where still the challenges are. But nevertheless, whatever the indicators are, sensors are, and how do we bring in and try to take control action? Particularly once you have a very cordoned off infrastructure in a particularly OT segment, then how the state actor threats can travel into the cordoned area is something which is still very, very nerve-wreaking. You really don't know from where the surprise will come. So currently, this is where we are working with our engineering teams, the suppliers, particularly who are manning the OT segment, and their work practices also we are also examining. So people and process definitely is something very fundamental in OT which needs to be visited. IT, those things have been fairly well established, but from an OT standpoint, we have some more work to do. And this is something which is going to impact the next call. How do we move forward in that domain? As I said, risk assessment is something which is more fundamental, which needs to be seen, because we have a challenge of legacy infrastructure. Because in such kind of critical infrastructure, the time of economic life of the asset is fairly long. So how do you blend the various operational calls of economics of the project management for such a long period, and it should inculcate the supply chain. So supply chain issues and the contractual issues which go behind the process part of it, they also have to be reviewed. So those things are currently work in progress. The Ministry of Power under the Central Executive Authority has already published guidelines for cybersecurity. I think from a critical infrastructure standpoint, that's one thing which is a very broad thing, and it has to be probably inculcated in our business processes as we speak. And it will take some time for the organization to mature along the way. So the biggest challenge here is how do you blend the challenge from legacy infrastructure, which has to continue, even if there are certain support issues there, vis-a-vis the latest acquisitions. And what kind of compliances you want to, because compliances are common, whether it's a legacy infrastructure or a modern infrastructure, compliances are the same. So that is something which is still being evaluated. I think that's one thing which I would like to submit.
Thank you so much. Cloud adoption is going through the roof across the country, right? For example, CoWIN app has changed the way Indians use cloud adoption, right? Do you see cloud adoption becoming a norm in PSUs? Organizations have to build both prevention strategies as well as detection strategies and response mechanisms as well. Robust detection strategies require a full built strong SOC, right? With automated and orchestrated approach. Where do you see PSUs adopting the same from a SOC perspective?
Like in RailTel, we have implemented SOC. At present, we have this thing. We do provide cloud service to government and other customers, and we have implemented SOC. Our motto to protect our data centers, servers, network, and customers' infrastructure from any type of cyber attack by using state-of-art technologies and innovative solutions. Our SOC provides complete security for east to west and north to south traffic. And our security starts from the perimeter of data center, from where north-south traffic travels through next generation firewall with IPS. And we have WAF also to take care of application design limitations. I think the organizations, the CISOs that are present here, they all, most of them are having their own SOC and implemented same, and above that SOAR also. And these seem like with advanced SIEM solutions, we are more able to monitor from a single dashboard with next generation event correlation approach to mitigate the incident from fastest possible security tool. Our SOC has integration with external threat intelligence feeds in addition to receiving feeds from certain. Now these feeds empower SOC analysts to do threat hunting in the DC environment and beyond. And we have tools in SOC that use AI ML technologies to do analysis and give SOC analysts, empower them to do threat hunting and act in case some breach happens. And I said earlier, like we have made CCMP. I won't be able to put much of my input on AI ML thing because we don't have right now such tools, advanced tools, though we have for analytics and in the SOC.
We'll come back to you, ma'am. Sure, we'll come back to you. But thank you for inputs. Mr. Dipesh Jain, your inputs on AIML. Yeah, absolutely. I saw your hand up, so I thought you'll be interested in answering this.
Yeah, thank you. I did study in this area and planning to implement these solutions. So when we talk about AI-based cybersecurity, basically we are talking about merging two different IT industries and taking the thing forward. So AI is completely a separate domain which derives artificial intelligence. Then we have a subset called machine learning, and then we have further subset called deep learning. So these are different approaches where we can actually simulate the human mind, how human mind works to solve a purpose. And we are asking a machine to simulate that and solve the purpose. That is all I can say about AI-based domain. Secondly, we talk about cybersecurity domain, which comprises of analyzing the traffic, analyzing the data patterns, using tools called Wiresharks, Nessus, and all those. Then we talk about hashes, signatures. And when we combine these two domains, then the need of the hour is actually not to replace the SOC engineers, but to help them, to strengthen them, so that they can actually figure out how this entire landscape, the enterprise landscape, can be secured. So I will start from a very basic use case of AI. I hope everybody will agree that initially for spam filtering, this was very useful, where the very basic approach of machine learning, supervised based machine learning, was introduced for spam filtering, and the spams were classified from the mail data. The ham data was sorted, and then we get good mails, and the spam mails are sent into the spam folder. So that use case has been matured enough right now, and like we do have all of us have Gmails, and whatever 80 to 90% spam mails are already being separated. So that is already there during through machine learning. Now, when I come to the advanced use case of machine learning, then we have unsupervised learning, where we use clustering based approaches. And I believe that is very much in place in our systems like intrusion detection systems, intrusion prevention systems, where this clustering is done, and these systems are capable of figuring out from the moving traffic that there can be a zero-day attack malware, which signatures are not available, and then it sends the suspected which is unknown, what we say in cybersecurity language. The unknown files are being sent for sandboxing. So that use case of machine learning is in place, and that is also matured. And I believe in most of the present day NGFWs, NGIPS, NGIDS, this technology is in place. Now, when we talk forward about more technical and more niche use of this machine learning, we talk about deep learning, where actually the approach is to simulate the human mind, and I will say to simulate the mind of the SOC engineer or SOC analyst in SOC operations, and whatever logs, events, and such data is being generated, which I believe not less than in thousands every minute are being generated. And even if whatever triggers are being generated by these seams, the traditional seams, it's not humanly possible to actually analyze and respond immediately, because cybersecurity attack happens in microseconds. So this deep learning based tools, technology can actually help in
Sure.
figuring out the entire deep learning, the cybersecurity threat in SOC and help the SOC team to actually use it. And I will use a quote here that if you're not being hacked yet, that doesn't mean that you are not being hacked right now. It's only that you are being asymptomatic and tests like antigen will not work. You have to go for deep dive tests like RT-PCR or CT scan. Only then you come to know that you are actually positive and you have to respond on that. So
Thank you.
these deep learning based tools are like that. And lastly, I will put that in IAM, in identity and access management. This AI based tools can be of help in future because now passwords and MFA are also not sufficient, and we need context sensitive based tools which can actually read the entire behavior of the activities going on a server, on an application, and then can make out that this behavior is suspicious and this needs to be restricted. So that's all I wanted to share. Thank you.
Thank you. Joseph, you've been in this field, right? Your comments. Sorry, it took time to reach to you. Yeah.
No worries. Am I audible and visible?
Yeah.
Yeah. Thanks. Yeah, I think I'll just pick up from where Dipesh and Haritima have said. I think if you look at in terms of the pure cybersecurity professionals and a study conducted by the ISSA information, 28% of the organizations feel that they depend too much on manual processes for the day-to-day security ops, such as chasing down data, investigating false positive alerts, managing remediation. And this is, as rightly pointed out, exacerbated by this looming shortage of skilled cybersecurity professionals. That's a fact, right? Because the teams, whoever you have, you invested and they're highly skilled, but they're just not enough hours in a day to get to everything that they should be doing. Things like, so that's where I'm very pertinent question, things like these automation, advanced analytics, security integration, this can help bridge the gap, right? From a cyber defender's perspective, I think there are three ways we can think about automation and AI enablement. And I think this has been briefly touched upon, but I'll just kind of summarize it. Number one, turn threat detection into prevention, right? The organization should not be spending any time preventing known threats because prevention should be automatic. Right. The same goes for unknown threats. They need to be automatically analyzed and countered, and letting your security team focus on the things that matters the most. Right. So that's what's very nicely touched upon. So I would put it as one. The second area where we can look at from an AI/ML perspective is to adapt to dynamic environments through context-based access policies. This is extremely important because the IT landscape is constantly changing. Right, all these esteemed panelists here are constantly grappling because you have ever increasing IT footprints. You have the shadow IT coming up. You have SaaS being developed. So your security team, it has to be able to set up policies automatically recommended based on the context of what should be protected. Whether it's user, data, or application. So context-based policies, they stand the test of time, by the way, and adapt to business changes. So that's where this machine learning automation comes in. And the final thing, and again, very rightly touched upon is on the whole SOC piece of it. So how do you trigger automated workflows and actions through analytics and machine learning, right? So automation supplies a very critical leverage against attackers. I touched upon it, right? They are using sophisticated. So how do you combine with the rich intel feed? How do you do rich analytics, basically in cloud-based analytics and machine learning? So organization can maintain that edge over the adversaries, with much better insight, context around their whole entire exploit and techniques. And some of the threats remain hidden in data, right? So you have to look really, really deeper across locations, deployments. So that's another area where automation and analytics and AI/ML brings in a very, very important aspect. So as a security vendor that offers automation, essentially what we believe is giving back time to you to do more valuable business critical work, right? It allows your security team to move away from basic operational tasks and focus on strategic efforts that directly benefit your organization.
Thank you so much. Last question to you, Meena ma'am, and probably Raman sir, welcome back, both of you. We've seen what COVID did to India, right? The app, probably one of the most widely used apps in India, followed by Arogya Setu. So do you think with such cloud services apps, do you think the cloud adoption will become a norm in PSUs these days? Meena ma'am, first you. Meena ma'am, can you hear us?
Yeah, I can hear, yes.
Okay.
Yes, it may become a norm, but it is, I think the process is little slow because most of the PSUs have already invested on their data centers and all. They have on-premise equipment already working. So, as I said earlier, also the life of the equipment that we already have plays also an important role, because if it has a 5 to 7 years of life and the remaining life is still 3 to 4 years, the PSCs would like to work on premise till the life of that equipment already there on premise is over, and then switch over to cloud. That is one thing. Second thing that I can think of is that the new application that we are developing, that can be switched on to cloud, for which the hardware is not available on premise. And then the third thing is that, there's so many models available where, as earlier said also, ISA, PASA, SASA and everything. So we have to take a view on that also. And so I think the way we are moving on is, as a public sector, is that the new applications we are planning, we are trying to shift on cloud. But the earlier applications like the ERP we have and all those things for which the hardware is already on place, I think that's going to take a little time. And moreover, of course, the security is a challenge. We have our own SOC, we have our own, perimeter security available with all IDS, SIEM and everything. So, which may not be available. I mean, the type of security we have in our IT systems on premise may or may not be available on CSP, with CSPs. So that is a challenge, of course, and so little apprehensive about what type of security the CSP will be able to provide us, and so yeah, it's taking a little time, but yes, we are moving on to cloud slowly.
Super. Mr. N. Raman sir, if you could comment on this, please.
Yes. Am I audible? Yes.
Yes, please.
I have a slightly different take on this. Actually, this apart from what only that we have already invested in certain data center and other thing, that is one aspect of it. And another is what she has, Madam Meena has very clearly manifested, is the classification of the information. No, all the things cannot be treated the same way. That is the main thing, because we have different impact level and risk analysis, what Anand Shankarji also told, that risk analysis and the impact is very important thing. So all the things cannot be treated at par with each other and other things, and even for cloud migration as well. So a cautious approach is required, because this thing is the perimeter security, whatever we had, and all those kind of configuration that has to be pushed onto the cloud. So in the cloud, what happens that most of the things are the problematic, becomes problematic because of the configurational errors, and that basically the problem comes back to the user only. Means the vendor CSPs don't take a call on that. So once there is any misconfiguration and those kind of things, the people have to yet to mature and use the cloud and other things. So the as a CISO of such an industry where it is highly critical in nature, our approaches are a little cautious on that. Let us take certain things which we have, which we are comfortable to be taken to cloud, and then over a period of time, when the cloud is not something, it's a shut it and forget it. That is the kind of approach you should never have it. I mean, the kind of technology people drive, the picture is as if it's some sort of a technology you put on your doorstep and it will take care of it. So that is a very dangerous kind of thought process, which normally we technology guys try to build up. So that is not the thing which I subscribe to, and we have to have, even using the cloud has required certain smartness. So no, when in case of any dispute or anything, the ball falls back to the user only, and CSPs with all whatever SOPs are there and mechanisms of punitive mechanisms are there, they get away with that. So this that is why what happened that we have to have our own maturity to use the cloud, and the way we configure and push our policies onto the cloud. And what kind of data has to be taken, that is also very important. That level of security has to be there. Here we thought like the other gentleman, we told that we have a defense in depth and all those kind of thing which are there. So those kind of thing, whether it is possible in one go in the cloud, that is a challenge. So this kind of entire vertical which is there, the way we put our crown gel entirely behind the entire defense in depth kind of a thing, the last perimeter security and stuff like that. So those things are not simply transferable into cloud. So that I think my panelists will also agree. This thing is cloud is one sort of a server, bunch of servers, and their applications runs, and that's it. But the kind of thing which is there required for the critical infrastructure, that cannot be driven right from there. And particularly, like Shankarji told, the OT is the biggest challenge within our premises also, when we are so much struggling to secure the OT operation technology, where the legacy systems are there and whatnot. So those things it will definitely take a longer time to be taken to cloud. That I can put it right across. So this, what we will go is the cloud journey is take the things which are very comfortable and the public facing kind of things. Those things will start with, and let the people configure, and our own people learn about it. Our own IT team and other things, they will have to have a comfort level with that. And once that happens, certain things, in our case, that certain applications just cannot run in the cloud. That's another problem. Then they have to be the classified informations are there, like geoscientific information, other things. So those things will keep it in the private cloud kind of a thing only. Even private cloud will help, because the way we manage our own internal customers' data also will give certain maturity. So it's a human maturity also plays a role. So normally the things that is very well said, the artificial intelligence will take care and all the things, they are very good to hear. But the thing is how much we make them to mature, that is also very important. So the human intervention cannot be just ruled out. So in the at least initial period, when we make the automatic intelligence and AI and ML learning to mature in their own way. So this is my take in that.
Thank you so much, sir. Excellent points. Now I'll just go in the reverse order, right? Where you said cloud is not. I'd like to summarize. I learned a lot of new things, a lot of things that I can use for my further moderations. But I'll start from the last one, which says cloud is not that you shut it and forget it. You have to keep innovating. To expanding the definition of CIA, which I had read all my life, to looking at risk management from a company perspective, to changing role of a CISO from 1994. Dipesh mentioned that quite well. To talking about how do we move to cloud, not move to cloud. To talking about if we've been not hacked yesterday does not mean that we'll not be hacked today, and going for more comprehensive tests like RT-PCR is not 100% accurate, get a CT scan done, etc. To talking about roles and responsibilities of every employee in an organization, responsibility of the board to the last level of employee, looking at perimeter. We spoke about crisis management plan. We spoke about resilience. It was really an honor to moderate such an esteemed group of panelists. I've never seen such enthusiastic people before in a conference. Thank you so very much. Over to you, Josefa, for your closing, please.
Oh, thank you, Jaspreet. Well done. I think for me, listening today, I think the biggest message which has come out, and very sincerely with hand on my heart, I'm saying is, as a security OEM and one of the largest security company in the world, I think we cannot take the approach of selling a solution or a product in a use case and walk off. We have to be a partner. I think, Muneer, you brought up some very pertinent points of information security, governance, risk management, compliance, that three aspects. The onus stays on us to work with all of you a little early in the cycle, work with some of those frameworks that you said, NIST, Zero Trust, and then help chart out that territory in terms of as a best practices vendor, as an external trusted consultant of how that journey, where you are, where you need to go, and how we can help that. So that is the biggest learning I have just read from all of these esteemed views, and more than keen to kind of partner with all of them. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. Be safe. Have a great day.
Thank you very much.
Thanks. Great learning for us also. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you for
Thank-
being the
thank you.
panelists, esteemed panelists over here. Thank you.
Thank you.